cars you've ever seen. Mattel's new Hot Wheels. Collect them by themselves or get them in wild new action sets like the drag race action set, the stunt action set, the Hot Curves race action set. Get Mattel's new Hot Wheels, the fastest metal cars you've ever seen.
Hey folks, Dad here with Elevation Diecast Racing. Welcome to the Redline Rumble 2024. This will be qualifying for a seeded bracket. I will be recording the top qualifying time and all the runs that make it down the track, cars 1 through 38. There are 38 cars. The rules for this one was 55 grams and under. And of course, these guys hold no punches back. They threw some heavyweights in there. And I believe I have one Johnny Lightning heavyweight in there. I threw in there just because it's a heavyweight. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that. Actually, a couple of heavyweights in there from Johnny. Nevertheless, Red Lines. We are getting ready to roll through 6 different teams. Bavarian Diecast has the first 8, 9 and 10 made up of Northern Roads Racing. 11 through 16 is Scale Racing Channel. Poverty Hollow sent in entries numbers 17 to 30. Elevation Diecast with 4 entries. And the last 4 we'll see down the track is from Umiri Racing. We have a track temperature of 69 degrees. All right, up first is the Mod Quad in antifreeze, 51.2 grams. Qualifying run beginning now. 2067. And for run number 2, 2066. So as of right now, Bavarian will be the top qualifier. 2066 is the time. Number 2 for Bavarian Diecast Racing is the Mod Quad in magenta. Run number 1, 2075. And this Mod Quad is coming in at 51.6 grams. 2075. Third entry for Bavarian Diecast, the 48.7 gram lime Sugar Caddy. 2072. And for run number 2, 2066. Next up for Bavarian Diecast is Short Order. 53.4 grams. 2069. And for run number 2, 2070. Next up is the 48.2 gram Sugar Caddy in orange. 2090, run number 2, 2088. Next up is the 46.7 gram Try Baby. 2080. And for run number 2, 2076. Next up at 54.1 gram, it is the Hood. 2062, thus resetting TQ. And for run number 2, 2058. Wow. Not bad for a 50-year-old car. And for the last entry for Bavarian Diecast Racing, it is the 54.1 gram Jet Threat. 2077. And for run number 2, 2073. Next up will be 2 entries from Northern Roads Racing. The first, a 54 gram Short Order. 2075. And I was wrong. The proper weight is 53.5 grams. Run number 2, 2074. Up next is the 45.7 gram Try Baby. 2090. And for run number 2, 2088. The next 6 cars we'll see will be from the Scale Racing channel. First up is the 42.2 gram Peeping Bomb, 2081. And for run number 2, 2072. Next up will be the 40 gram Mantis in magenta, 2077. And for run number 2, 2078. Next up is the 53.1 gram short order, 2076. And for run number 2, 2085. Next up at 53.6 grams, it's the hood in blue, 2076. And for run number 2, 2074. Next up is the Rolls Royce, 48.3 grams. It's the Silver Shadow, 2083. And for run number 2, 2081. And last up for qualifying for the Scale Racing channel, it is the 52.1 gram Magenta Mod Quad. All right, 2077. And for run number 2, 2072. All right, next up, team number 4 is Poverty Hollow Adult Diecast Racing, numbers 17 through 30 entries. First up is the AMXZ in 43 grams in lavender, 2104. And for run number 2, 2100. Next up, 54.1 gram Jet Threat, 2133. And for run number 2, 2111. Much better run. Next up is the other Silver Shadow of this event. Run number 1, 2093. This one weighing 52.2 grams, 2090. Next up is the 50.3 gram Sugar Caddy, 2137. Second run, 2165. Next up is the 51 gram Green Sugar Caddy, 2089. And for run number 2, 2087. Next up, a very minty Sugar Caddy, 2093. And for the second run, 2089. Next up, it's the Custom Charger, 48.4 grams. Run number 1, 2097. And for run number 2, 2091. All right, next 2 up will be from the Snake and Mongoose set. Here's the Snake, 2107. And for run number 2, 2105. And for the 43 gram Mongoose, 2109. And for a second run, 2111. Next up is the Custom El Dorado, 42.2 grams, 2093. And for run number 2, 2094. Next up is the 45.5 gram Bug Eye, 2095. And for run number 2, 2097. Next up, the Custom El Dorado in brown, 43.3 grams, 2082. All right, let's go. And for run number 2, 2091. Next up is the 51.3 gram Seaside. Run number 1, 2092. And for run number 2, 2010. Next up is the 47.1 gram TNT Bird. 2115. And for run number 2, 2112. Next up is 4 from the home track at Elevation Diecast Racing. Normally I don't race in my own races, but this is a special invitational event and I was invited to race, so I am putting some cars on the track. I only have 4 that are really worth anything, and I don't even think they're that fast, so we're going to get a look at the first one. I've got, besides my Noodlehead, entered into this crazy event, and so here we go with run number 1. 2088. And for run number 2, 2078. Next up is a 37.1 gram 1967 Diora. 2092. And for run number 2, 2094. Next up, the 43.9 gram Alive 55. 2119. And for run number 2, 2122. Next up, the 35.8 gram Red Baron. Oh my Lanta. Poor Red Baron. This would be an Isaiah driving car. Isaiah likes the Red Baron. 2115. And for run number 2, 2113. Alright, and that does it for Elevation Diecast for team number 6 at Umi Re-Racing with 4 entries. First up, 46.5 gram Try Baby. 2066. Oh my Lanta, here we go again. And for run number 2, 2067. Next up, 47.3 gram What For? 2074 is What For. And for run number 2, 2071. Up next, 42.3 Peeping Bomb. 2076. And for run number 2, 2071. And the last entry for this portion of qualifying is the hood in gold. 2071. And for run number 2, 2068. And there they are. All 38 cars have been ran their qualifying run. And after this race, on the same video, I will run off these as well, and this will just be a timed event. I'll run all 14, and the top 8 will move on, and then the top 4, and so on. So our top qualifier is Bavarian Diecast Racing with a 2058. I'll get these numbers crunched up and put into the bracket. Just give me a moment here. All right, we're back, and here's what the bracket looks like so far. The missing cars are the latter 6 cars that will be racing against the latter 6 cars that would have made it into the bracket. There'll be a race off, and we'll fill these slots accordingly. Here is a look at the first round, the preliminary round, getting into the bracket, and then we'll race the 32 off to see who will be the fastest red line for the Redline Rumble. And at the end of that bracket race, we will do a timed race and we'll break out the heavyweights. So stay tuned. The Redline Rumble will be coming up soon.